Here to cover all things crime, history, and politics, we are At the Desk. I'm your host, Alina Surace, and in today's episode, we'll be talking about Netanyahu, Mike Pence, Henry VIII's wives, O.J. Simpson, Oppenheimer, and in a special interview, 2 candidates for Penn State student government. Now, come take a seat with us at the desk. Welcome back to ATD. First, we'll be sending it over to our politics panel to discuss Israel's Prime Minister and Mike Pence.
Thanks, Elena. United States Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer recently called out Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on mistakes he believes the Israeli government has made in relation to the current conflict with Hamas. Schumer's speech lasted 45 minutes and received harsh criticisms from Republicans and the Israeli government. We'll have that later, but first, Mike Pence joined CBS's Face the Nation on St. Patrick's Day, in which he said, "I cannot in good conscience endorse Donald Trump." And with Trump at odds with the conservative agenda, according to Pence, Jordan, do you agree with that or no?
I think this has been a tricky situation because we have Vice President Pence speaking out against someone he served with for 4 years, and he's made mention to the actions on January 6th being part of the reason he doesn't want to endorse him, but not just those the actions on January 6th, but also the fact that he feels like former President Trump isn't aligning with the conservative agenda anymore. So it was a little surprising to see someone that worked so closely with the former president publicly stating how he's not going to endorse him, but also they're fewer than 1/3 of the more than 40 people that worked with Trump on his staff. Also, there's not a lot of people endorsing him. So I wouldn't necessarily say I was surprised to hear it, but also, going on Face the Nation and really putting it all out there is a big step for former vice president.
So you're not citing January 6th?
I don't know. I think it has partially to do with it, but I think it goes so much deeper than that.
I definitely want to get into January 6th. I would say, just as a first reaction from myself, I think it's very interesting that Mike Pence said that Trump is going against the conservative agenda. My personal opinion is that Trump's only agenda is his own agenda. So whether his values or his goals align with the conservatives, he's going to pursue that. If they don't, he's going to pursue that as well. So can we really say Trump has ever been working for the conservative agenda? I won't say much more on that. But citing January 6th, actually, we all heard that the rioters outside of the Capitol were saying, "Hang Mike Pence," because of his refusal to overturn the election decision. And I do believe that's a big part of it, because Mike Pence himself has said that he does not believe that any one person, regardless of stature, even the President of the United States, can put themselves above the Constitution. And I think that's a huge point of contention. I think he was also personally hurt by people of his own party calling to hang him, which he's only human. I would be very hurt by that too. But I do think January 6th is a huge point of contention and possibly a deciding factor as to why he decided not to endorse his former running mate.
Of course. And so just to go back on the whole, Trump not being loyal to conservatives, what we have to keep in mind is this. Trump is from New York City. He was a Democrat for a long time. It's always been about him, about, forwarding himself, whether it be business or politics. So to think that he would stay loyal to all conservatives is, honestly silly. And he's going to do what's best for him at the end of the day. And about January 6th. So, of course, Pence was, less than 40 feet away, around 40 feet away from the rioters that day. He was pressured by, other conservatives to go along with Trump and, pressured by other conservatives to not go along with Trump. He was put under an extreme amount of stress. And most people believe that he did the right thing. He obeyed the 12th Amendment. He served as the proper president of the Senate and had the Electoral College vote go through and didn't obey his president's orders to overturn the election. So I think that he did the right thing in the moment. And, there's arguments to be made that it wasn't Trump's fault that the rioters went to the Capitol building. There's arguments to be made that it was his fault. But at the end of the day, Pence did what he was supposed to do according to the Constitution, for sure.
And I think he cites that a lot because from everything I've been seeing, it has a lot to do with we need to have faith in our Constitution. We need to follow what it tells us to do. And kind of like you were saying, Trump had pretty much called on Pence to make him overturn the election in favor of Trump. And I think that was probably a big sticking point for Pence and maybe why he chose not to endorse former President Trump, because he asked him to go against what he believed in the Constitution.
But I think it's very interesting that he is calling Trump wishy-washy, well, not using those exact words, but saying that he's going against his conservative agenda, when Mike Pence, in one of the earlier GOP debates, raised his hand when the mediators asked, so would you, as candidates for the presidency, support Trump if he were to be cleared of, regardless of like the charges brought against him? And he was among the people that raised his hand, and now he's coming and he's saying, no, I'm not going to endorse Trump finally. So
wishy-washy.
Very wishy-washy, very much going against his word. I have to wonder if his endorsement of Trump would even mean much. But
it's funny to see who kept to their word in that situation, because Nikki Haley didn't endorse him, but at the same time, the situation with her husband was after that question that was asked on the debate stage.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of with what you were saying about that wishy-washy, his principles with conservatism. I mean, last week we talked about this potential TikTok ban, and that was something that he made mention to, Trump's reversal on the issue of the TikTok ban. And so he's using that as an example of he's not following these conservative values, and he's using stuff that happened on January 6th as a principle, or as a point of not following the Constitution. I think it's deeper than just these particular issues, but it's the core of what they mean, and maybe that's why
Of course.
he's taking a step back from Trump, which to me, like you said, does his opinion mean much? Because, I'm going to endorse him. I'm not endorsing him anymore.
His opinion, I believe, meant as much as 4% of the party at most.
Yeah.
But I mean, you also have to think about it is this is someone who was the vice president, who worked very closely, and so maybe for the party it doesn't make much of a difference, but I wonder how that's going to look for the American people, seeing that someone who worked hand in hand with Trump for 4 years.
And so to go off, this whole wishy-washy politics, let's talk about American politics trying to meld into foreign politics. So Chuck Schumer recently called for an election in Israel to get rid of Prime Minister Netanyahu because of the current Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the way Israel has been handling it. So currently there are at least 31,000 Palestinians dead. There's, you have over 2 million Palestinians displaced from Gaza, or 80% of those people displaced. You have just a humanitarian crisis. Most of them are starving. All these things happening. And Chuck Schumer recently made a statement.
Well, let me ask, why didn't you mention the hostages, 130 hostages?
Well, the hostages are very much a problem, but the numbers right now are seeing a lot more Palestinian casualties, and that's why Chuck Schumer made the statements.
Yes, but I also feel at the same time that alludes to Chuck Schumer's reasoning, is that no one's mentioning these 130 hostages who are not being treated humanely and are basically being held by a terrorist organization. That has been the elephant in the room. Nobody has spoken about that. And that is, I'm not saying I 100% agree with Chuck Schumer, but Chuck Schumer is absolutely right to say it is disgusting how the media is downplaying 130 hostages. It's disgusting, because 130 people is still a lot of people. It may not be 31,000 Palestinians. It might not be the millions of people on the Gaza Strip, but it's 130 hostages who were taken abruptly on a holiday.
And I definitely agree with you, Ryan, but my issue is, and I think the issue that Chuck Schumer and as well as the international community, which I will get to later, has, is that even if Netanyahu has made this commitment in the past that he wants to bring these hostages who are being held by Hamas home, how is he going to do that when the buildings that the hostages are being held in are bombed and they're in rubble? So I think that's a real big point of contention as well, is that a lot of people are thinking that Netanyahu himself is not taking care of the hostages. He's not doing his best to bring the hostages home. And Chuck Schumer himself said that he is an obstacle of peace and has lost his way. So whether that is regarding the hostages as well or just in general, I believe that's the general sentiment that was trying to get across. But I definitely agree that the hostages are a big issue. But I don't think
that was downplayed by the media.
That
yes.
is 100%. That is the biggest issue in this whole thing. Is that we've been talking about the problems that Palestinians have been having. They're 100% a problem. But we have forgotten about the fact that there is 130 hostages being
and that
held.
the beginning of this war was a
Hamas
Hamas attack on Israel.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say, if I would be able to go up to some people who are Jewish and ask them how many hostages there currently are, and they wouldn't be able to answer the question because there's not enough media attention.
Well, and part of the
towards
problem
it.
for that too is they keep just saying humanitarian crisis.
Yeah.
They're not getting. I think part of the job of the media is to let's be honest with the people. Let's tell them what's happening and how it is. They keep going with this humanitarian crisis, and they're focusing more on the opposition of Netanyahu instead of here's what's happening. These are the crises. These are the hostages. This is the situation. These are the people that aren't getting food. These are the people that aren't getting the we're not focusing on the humanitarian side of it, we're focusing on the politics side of it. And I think a big part of finding that balance is having a big focus on both. We need to look at the leadership, but we also need to fully understand the problem in order to have accurate conversations surrounding it.
Absolutely. Both sides are being affected. Obviously, more Palestinian people are losing their lives. In a situation where you're Benjamin Netanyahu, you're a wartime leader of a country that represents millions of people around the world, because Israel is a sacred place to Palestinian people. It's a sacred place to Jewish people. And although the Jewish population doesn't compare to the billions of Catholics or, just general Christian amount of people, there are still millions of people who are looking at this war and personally feel affected, might know people affected by it, might know people who are personally connected to the land. Obviously, we know Egypt is involved. Other surrounding countries are involved. So the whole thing is just an absolute mess. And I'll tell you this, doesn't matter Netanyahu's record. I would not want to be him right now, because he has so many people's lives in his hands. He has to represent one side while not hurting the other side. He's got America knocking on his door, the symbol of freedom. The whole thing is a mess. And the person critiquing it, well, the person who usually critiques him is Benny Gantz, his political rivalry. And he said that the remarks that were made by Chuck Schumer are errored. He said that he does not like these remarks, and the reason why he does not like these remarks is because it's an impossible job to have in the moment. And although he's not making some right decisions, and although his history has just been absolutely disastrous, this whole situation has just been misrepresented by the media. Certain parties that came to the table have not been fair to him. Although he hasn't been fair back, they haven't been fair to him as well. And he was the one who really kicked off the whole situation, because at the end of the day, Hamas was the one who started the war, not Israel.
And so he thinks that, Chuck Schumer doesn't understand his position because Chuck Schumer is not a leader of a country during a wartime.
Exactly. Chuck Schumer is an American senator. He has nothing to do with the Israeli government. He doesn't have anything to do with any sort of congressional body in Israel. He is a friend to Israel. He is a Jewish person. However, at the end of the day, he is asking for something that is not very democratic.
But I think also it hurts as well, because America has stood by Israel for so long, and you don't hear a lot of criticism from American politicians about Israel until Chuck Schumer now came and he called Netanyahu an obstacle to peace, telling him that he lost his way. So I think that even is more painful in a sense. But to me, I think going to your statement about how Hamas started the war in October and not Israel, I think it's also important to realize that there's so much more history behind it, and there's so many more years of Israel defying UN resolutions constantly from 1948 that we have to look into. Obviously, I'm not negating that the Israeli lives lost on October 7th were unimportant, or that they deserved it, or anything like that. But you can't say that Netanyahu has just been doing what he does as a position of somebody leading a country in war, when there are records of these types of human rights violations dating back since before October 7th, 2023.
And it's hard whenever you're in times of crisis. I mean, just imagine being in that position, trying to make those decisions, kind of like what you guys were saying. He's getting a lot of backlash for it, and from not only us in America, but his people. And it's a delicate situation to be in. What do you do? What's the right call? No matter what he does, people are going to be upset. Everyone's going to have something to say. I mean, whenever this whole COVID-19 took the world by storm, people were very quick to blame people in high places of, you didn't do the right thing. So it's the same thing we're seeing here, except it's a really tough situation to be in. And it's like, there's things that Schumer was saying that you could understand, and there's also things where it's like, it's just,
he was going both ways on things that are realistic. Like, if we were to replace Netanyahu, what would change? Because you're representing the people of Israel who want their hostages back.
Yeah.
It's a very tough situation.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you do have to remember, I am going to side with him on this, and I think you can all agree, Netanyahu has made some grave mistakes, and he's been in power for 16 years.
Right.
That in itself is undemocratic.
Right. And you have people, his own people, the Israeli people have been protesting outside of parliament, calling for elections, and saying that they've been wanted Netanyahu out of power for a very long time. This is not the first time we're seeing criticism of Netanyahu from the Israeli people themselves.
Well, and that's the hard part. They want him out of power. He's been in power for too long, and now we have this big humanitarian crisis on our hands. That doesn't look good for him.
And piling on the ICJ, International Court of Justice, who has also been criticizing him. It's a lot.
Not to mention, a transfer of power in such a crucial situation in the Middle East could be a disaster.
My question for all this is switching him going to cause the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that's been occurring for a century now, is that going to cause it to stop?
Well, history repeats itself, and the Accords during the Clinton days did not obviously make a difference. We're seeing that right now. It's just getting more aggressive. So is there a solution? Schumer thinks he has one. I don't think he can find one in changing power directly, but we'll have to see. Donald Trump is up for election in November, and Netanyahu's current term will expire in 2026. We'll see you next week. Back to you, Alina.
Thanks, Ryan. Stay tuned for a special interview with the candidates for the president and vice president of Penn State student government. We'll be right back at the desk.
Welcome back to At the Desk. My name is Brandon Cuck, and I'm your host today. And today I'm joined by two prospective UPUA candidates to talk about their campaigns and goals as representatives of the student body. Now, for those unaware, UPUA is Penn State's student government, and they are committed to fighting for Penn State students and being a voice for the entirety of Penn State. My two guests today are Rasha Elwakil, running for vice president, and her ticket mate, Zion Sykes, who will be running for president. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming. So tell me a little bit about you guys, your campaign, your goals, who you are as students.
My name is Zion Sykes. I am a third-year student studying global international studies and political science. And I guess some of the reason why I really want to run, for me, it's like UPUA has been something that I've been a part of for a long time, gotten to really understand the ins and outs of it and how it can best serve the university student body. And I feel that we really need someone who's willing to sort of take a stand on certain things, take action in order to make sure that we are doing as much as we can in order to better student life.
Right.
And you know, sort of in my experience with the UPUA, I've gotten to see, like I said, the ins and outs of it, and that there are things that we can be doing that we might not be doing yet, and I really want to capitalize on that.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, and I decided that I wanted to run on Zion's executive ticket because as chair of Justice and Equity this year, I loved all the DEI activities that I was able to do, but I also care about other specs of like UPUA and just student life in general, such as like mental health, sustainability, just anything that involves like student life. So just getting a broader sense of what I can really delve into, while also still focusing on DEIB initiatives because that is one of our pillars for our campaign.
Okay, yeah, sure. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Well, I'll go with all the four pillars. So diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, advocacy, affordability, and environmental sustainability are the four things we're basing this campaign around. I think this all serves one goal of bettering student life. I say one goal because I feel like they all serve that one purpose because they feed into each other in many ways. In order to, push for affordability, we need to advocate better. Advocacy for environmental sustainability. When we're including, affordability into things, we're drawing on that diversity aspect, including, people of different economic statuses, making them feel as though they belong. I think it's all a very holistic role. Like we were saying, I should have mentioned it. The broad asks of the University Park Undergraduate Association's president. You have like a lot of things that you can get involved with and take part in. There's certain specific enumerated roles, but then on top of that, you can take it in. It's a very malleable role with what you can do. I'm sure you feel the same way about vice presidency. I'm just really looking forward to all that. But back to the pillars, I think that these are four things that not only we as a university need, but these four things are things that we need just sort of in general within our communities. We want to really work on sort of pushing Penn State forward into the future with that. Yeah,
absolutely. With the affordability part of that, actually, you guys recently, I believe, passed a $15 minimum wage thing within
referendum.
The referendum.
Yeah, I can talk about that.
Absolutely.
That goes a little bit with the elections. I can talk about that if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
So the elections for the UPUA's 19th Assembly are happening on March 27th. That's a Wednesday, guys. Be ready. 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. You'll be able to vote at vote.psu.edu.
Okay.
There you'll see on election day a form that'll give you the potential positions you can vote for: executive, legislative. There'll be more legislative spots depending on your college, faculty, senators, as well as your residence hall area student government. That'll have elections as well on the site.
Okay.
But on that, additionally, into who you can vote on, there'll be a referendum question discussing whether you support or don't support a $15 minimum wage across all campus jobs.
Okay. So that's going to be included with the voting on the website then?
Yes.
That's important to know. Okay, sounds good. So with the we talked about a lot about like your guys' goals, right? But in terms of UPUA as a whole, regardless of if you're elected or not, you're still a part of it, right? How can somebody get involved if they want to get involved in UPUA?
Yeah. So besides just the general elections that are happening right now, throughout the year, vacancies will pop up, as well as after elections, there'll be positions for the executive department. So like the Department of Environmental Sustainability, Department of Finance. We have a multitude of different departments that fall under the UPUA structure on the executive department. That's our like one of the branches that makes up UPUA. But throughout the year, there'll be some positions that open throughout the legislative, judicial, and executive branch that anyone can apply to, any undergraduate student can apply to. And wherever they're interested in, they can seek out positions, and it should be on the UPUA's website as well as the UPUA's newsletter that gets sent out after General Assembly every Wednesday, and the Instagram too. And a lot of representatives within UPUA as well will be reposting it to their personal Instagram. So in case someone's following someone within UPUA, you'll probably see it pop up here or there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So anybody can vote for this, any Penn State undergrad student, correct?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
University Park specifically.
University Park specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have committee meetings. I can start with those.
Yeah.
Sadly, we just had our last ones for the assembly, but next, within a couple weeks, so maybe beginning, middle of April, they'll start back up again. New people will be running the committees, but those are focused on different things. For me specifically, I've this past year had the opportunity to run the Governmental and Community Relations Committee, which has been a blast. I really love hearing the different ideas of the other representatives. And then really having opportunity to assist them in their goals as the chair, just assisting them and then steering the meetings forward.
Okay.
And then Rasha leads the Justice and Equity, or led the Justice and Equity meetings up until...
Okay, yeah, sure. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. So what Justice and Equity really does is a lot of DEIB initiatives. And so this year we really decided to expand the scope, and that was a huge part of when I was running for chair of Justice and Equity, was like expanding what the scope of what people typically think falls under DEIB. So we worked a couple of times this year with WorkLink, which is a 2-year certificate program for those with disabilities to get experience working in a multitude of different areas where they're interested. And so we did like a note-taking workshop with them and did just like a multitude of different like PowerPoints because that's what the coordinators said would seem fit and seem best for it.
Absolutely.
We also have Women's Empowerment Week upcoming, World Cultural Week. We met with the Office of Veteran Affairs, met with the Office of Adult Learners, just met with a multitude of different offices and different groups on campus because we really want the inclusivity of like all groups and to know that they all belong here. So really expanding that scope of DIB was what my committee did this year. But it was really fun to lead that committee. A lot of great ideas. A lot of the inherent identity groups sit within the Committee of Justice and Equity. So it's really cool to like hear everyone's different perspectives of what they would like to see happening in the Penn State community, as well as just smaller communities here at Penn State that make up the broader universe.
So speaking of great ideas, what were some great ideas that you guys have for your campaign?
You want to talk about the task force?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So a huge part of our accessibility pillar is the accessibility task force. And so we hope that students, administration, and faculty would all sit on that to help develop more accessibility here on campus, whether that be physical or intellectual, and working with the Office of Student Disability Resources on that, as well as those that comprise of the general task force, and just look in a multitude of different ways that seem fit of like what can we do to better Penn State and how can we make it more accessible to all students and every student, as well as administration and faculty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just like a quick thing on that. This is a great idea Rasha that came up with. She ran it by me, and I just, after we talked about it, it seemed as though I noticed it more and more, hearing from people who, might be in wheelchairs, so physically have different needs, or educational different requirements.
Sure.
Working to really with that sort of different student population that you might not initially think of because you only see through your own eyes. I think that's one way we're really going to try and improve upon the university.
Absolutely. Okay. So do you guys have anything more to add before we go? Anything you want to say to the people out there? Anything like that?
Just to check out our Instagram, Vote Sykes Awakil. We also have our website, and as we mentioned, we love to hear student feedback as well as just like knowing what the students want. So on our Instagram, and I believe our website as well, we have a link tree where students can go and go to a Google feedback form and just say what they would like to see on our campaign, and just see in the future what they would like to see in UPUA, because we really do value student feedback, and I think that's what makes up the UPUA is student feedback, and that's why we do what we do, is to help the student body, help promote initiatives and programming.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Your voice, our action. That's our motto.
Absolutely.
We really want to be a president and vice president that work with the student body and not speaking over them.
To the student body, can you remind one more time where to vote and when to vote?
Yes, so you vote at PSU or vote.psu.edu March 27th. And another thing, March 25th.
Starts at 9.
9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay.
And another cool little thing, March 25th, we'll have the executive ticket debate. So it'll be myself and Rasha going against the other executive ticket, discussing some issues, our plans, ideas.
How can we tune into that? Is there any that's going to be broadcast and released or anything like that?
So it'll be, I believe, 7 p.m. March 25th in
Freeman Auditorium, usually. That's
Freeman
where it is.
Auditorium?
But the UPUA's Instagram should definitely have it in the next couple of days, where it will be and the final details.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, best of luck to you guys on March 25th and March 27th.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you again to Zion and Rasha for joining us. And make sure you pay attention to all things UPUA to make sure your voice is heard as a student here at Penn State. We'll see you back next time at the desk.
We are once again back at the desk. It's time to send it over to our crime panel to discuss O.J. Simpson. Over to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Alina. I'm joined tonight by Savannah Barr, Sean Romeo, and Eva Hines. On June 17th, 1994 is today remembered as one of the craziest days in sports history. Arnold Palmer played in his final U.S. Open. The 15th ever World Cup kicked off. Ken Griffey Jr. tied Babe Ruth's home run record. The New York Rangers had a Stanley Cup parade, and the New York Knicks won Game 5 of the NBA championship. But all this excitement was, as always, overshadowed by the juice. O.J. Simpson, a famous college and professional football player, actor, and cultural inspiration, was suspected of murdering his ex-wife and her friend outside his home in Los Angeles, California, in the wealthy Brentwood community. A police chase ensued through the many freeways of Los Angeles as thousands swarmed the highways to watch O.J. and his friend A.C. Cowlings lead a chase with the LAPD. Eventually, the chaos would end back in Brentwood peacefully, but this would only lay the groundwork for one of the most chaotic and controversial trials in history. Eva, though, before that, tell us a little bit about O.J.
Oh, yeah. So O.J. was a huge athlete. So he kind of started his famous career in college when he played for USC Trojans, and he there won the Heisman Trophy. So he was very successful. Right out of college, he was selected in the draft to play for the Buffalo Bills in 1969. And from there, he set so many records. He was the first NFL player to rush for more than 2,000 yards in a single season. And he became just so well known through his athletics. However, from there, he also dabbled in a few other things. So he then went to broadcasting, where he was able to be in a bunch of commercials and just kind of get his face on the air. And from there, he became kind of a successful actor. He was in a bunch of notable films and TV shows. To name a few, the Naked Gun trilogy, The Klansman, The Towering Inferno, and Back to the Beach. And I feel like he kind of played kind of funnier roles. He kind of had the comedic side. People really liked his work. He kind of knew how to act like that. And I feel like sometimes, because he was a famous sports player, they would have his roles sometimes get hurt or get injured, because that was kind of like an homage back to like when he was in the sports industry. And I feel like he just dipped his toes into so many things. And that, which we can talk about later, is how he got so well known. Whether you were a sports fan or a TV fan, you knew O.J. Simpson's name. You knew him, you loved him. Yeah.
Well, as Eva was saying, O.J. was a cultural icon in the late 90s when all of this took place. But through the backdrop of it all was that LA was an extremely segregated city in terms of race relations. the black population lived mostly on the south side of LA and sort of the poorer, rundown neighborhoods of Watts and things like that. And OJ and his family lived on the north side, northwest side, really, of Brentwood and things like that. Now, I'll be the first to say I'm not a black man, so I can't really go too deep into the whole race thing. But the point of the matter is that in 1992, a black man named Rodney King was viciously beaten by several cops in a suburb of Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley. Now, this trial was originally supposed to take place in downtown Los Angeles, which is a majority black neighborhood. The trial was then moved to Simi Valley, which is a majority, almost 95% white neighborhood, and an all-white jury was selected for these cops. Now, once that trial took place, it was obvious that the cops acted ridiculously by beating this man senseless on the side of a road, and it was all videotaped. But they were let off the hook by this jury. That reflected itself hugely in the OJ trial, which did take place in downtown Los Angeles with a majority black jury. Now, there's all sorts of racial relationships that go into all that, but I can let Savannah sort of expound on all of this.
Yeah, so talking about the jury and the trial, I want to talk about the Dream Team for a second. You know, this was a group of highly trained, high-profile individuals whose cross-examination skills ended up winning OJ the case. It was led by Robert Shapiro and then taken over by Johnny Cochran. And, you know, famously, they brought up the glove not fitting, which allegedly OJ had worn during the murders. And they said, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't acquit.
You must acquit.
You must
If
acquit.
it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Yep, their famous
Yes,
line.
and you know, they did end up for most of the trial playing it was based on race card due to what you had said, going back.
Yeah, they played the race card. They all of his lawyers, they kind of had to find something to hone in on to win him this case. Because yes, he was known, he was a celebrity, but that wasn't going to be the only thing to get him through the finish line. And they kind of looked back at the history of these cops leading the investigation, and they had found some evidence that one cop back in the day had said the N-word. And they kind of ran with that. They started saying all this stuff about, well, he is racist, so he planted the glove, he put the blood there, he put this there. They kind of took that as their kind of go forward, and that is what they used ultimately to win this case.
And with the whole thing that I think, the point that we haven't mentioned yet that I really think we need to talk about is money. OJ could afford 5 or 6, not 1, not 2, but 5 or 6 genius lawyers. The crime was committed in Brentwood, a place that was almost left completely absent from the Rodney King riots. And the whole thing almost circulated around money in the beginning. OJ fired a not-so-good lawyer. He replaced him with 5 or 6 great ones. Then all of a sudden, the race card just popped in front of them. Mark Furman was the gentleman's name. There was theories, there was no confirmations, but there was theories that he was a neo-Nazi. And all of this stuff just started to pile together for them. A bunch of his lawyers went down south. They were able to acquire the tapes of him saying the N-word. They were able to get permission to play that by Judge Ito, who, again, another big name in the case, they got permission to play it right in front of the jury. And at the same time, Chris Darden and Marcia Clark were the two prosecuting it. They were assistant district attorneys for a district attorney's office that still today plays an impact in Los Angeles history, as Gil Garcetti, which was his name. His son, Eric Garcetti, was the mayor for a very long time. But now we're going to track right back to the situation. Those two were left by Garcetti to represent him, and they did not do a very good job. They were almost getting bullied by the race card. They were getting bullied by the prosecutors. And they were getting bullied by the defense. And at the end of the day, they just felt trapped, and everything they said was just erased by the race card and by OJ's fan club.
You know, and going on to that, you know, by claiming the race card with the LAPD investigator, it took away his credibility as a witness. And then they had nothing to stand on because of it. Well, you know, once they played that with him, everything he said lost accountability. Absolutely. In a sense.
And Clark and Darden, their whole case was just based off simple facts and simple explanations, which added up to a very, well-run case. However, the way they presented it was not in a way that the jury could understand. Also, with the idea of DNA played a major role in this case. It was the first case that really took DNA to the next level. And even though quote-unquote DNA matches were found, there was so little there that it was hard to make the match.
The jury was not accustomed to technology. It was new technology just to begin with in the first place. So when the glove didn't fit, that really played it. The race card, Mark Furman's record, that just all destroyed it. Chris Darden and Marcia Clark, there was theories, that they were into each other, that they weren't getting along at certain points. That also played a point in it. So the whole thing was just meshed with conspiracy theories happening within the prosecution itself, and then just the strength of the defense in the trial.
And Ron, I want to add on to that. OJ had a history of domestic abuse with his wife. I think it's really interesting that people overlook that, because there had been reports filed quite a few times about that.
Yeah, there had been so many calls to his house from his wife reporting this for so many years. And OJ, to a lot of people, was such a great guy. He was so friendly, he was so great, but he had a lot of jealousy issues, especially involving his wife and ex-wife. She would see people and that would make him super mad. And whether he went over there as a threat of violence, whatever, but we have seen this for so long.
There were 911 tapes of his wife pleading with the police to send someone over to, stop OJ from beating him.
She was very emotional in the tapes. You can hear the whole thing. You could tell she was getting abused. 911 said they were sending people over to handle the situation. But at the end of the day, it's O.J. Simpson.
You're exactly
It's very hard to prosecute.
Exactly right.
I mean, we're talking about 5 or 6 crazy things happening in the sports world, and all of a sudden O.J.'s driving in a Bronco, and that takes the scene. Yeah. It's O.J. Simpson. There's not much you can do. There's a normal car chase. You're going to get 5 or 6 police cars, maybe the helicopter. O.J. got all of the press following him, the entire LAPD, 5, 6 precincts getting involved in the chase. He was allowed back into his home to drink milk or juice. Pardon me, juice. I got to get that correct. I'm serious. It was juice. Yeah. I mean, OJ he got the lucky rich person treatment, the celebrity treatment that we've seen previous people we've spoken about get.
Here's what's interesting here is also as well the idea that even today we don't understand how big O.J. Simpson was at this point in time. This is someone who is on the level of Taylor Swift today, of The Rock, someone who is this incredible celebrity that people thought was essentially a god in a way.
And if anything, more then, because back then there wasn't as many The Rocks or Taylor Swifts. He was like the person. Even if you weren't into sports, even if you weren't into television, you knew O.J. Simpson. And I feel like that led to even a level of people didn't want it to be true. People loved him. They didn't want this to be a thing that was a possibility. I mean, you look today, if Taylor Swift, if you heard this today, you'd be like, I don't want to believe it. I don't even want to consider that as an option. And people didn't want to think O.J. Simpson could do something like this. They didn't want to believe that. And I feel like that did play a big role in the case.
It's crazy how much the whole situation foreshadowed, because the Kardashian family was involved well before they became famous. So I don't know if any of you guys want to touch on that, but that was interesting, just to see Robert Kardashian's position on the whole thing, how he helped, he reinstated his license in law to help OJ, and then at the end of the day, he bailed on OJ when OJ was found innocent at the party. The whole thing was just a mess with that, and then at the same time it destroyed the careers of many, very good people on the defense. Like, for example, you remember Lee. Lee was one of the people on the defense who was decided by Shapiro midway through the case, you're pro bono. Almost destroyed his career. Also destroyed Robert Shapiro's career. He was looked at as weak. And then on the other side, too, Johnny Cochran, who was really seen as a staple in the black community. They look back, it goes 50-50.
Kardashian and OJ were actually very close friends. That's why he did reinstate his license as a lawyer. And he's also one of the reasons that OJ was allowed to go back into his house because of him.
Yeah.
And, the idea of O.J. Simpson being this huge celebrity, nobody wanted to believe what happened, which, obviously was this incredible. But all the facts added up to a logical case that he may have done this. I mean, there's no way for us to say he is guilty because he was found innocent. But the logical facts of the case is that he committed this crime.
We can talk about this for years, but there is a twist, too. O.J. got arrested in Las Vegas many years later. So he was found innocent. It was crazy. He got arrested in 2008.
And the book he wrote. I'd like to add that in. Adds up
and the
all
title,
of the evidence.
He said it step by step what
They're making us wrap up.
I did it.
I want to talk about this all night. I wish we could hold this studio all night, but unfortunately, we are not allowed to. Anyway, O.J. was arrested again in 2008, as I said, but this time he was found guilty of armed robbery and kidnapping in Las Vegas, Nevada. O.J. was released on parole in October of 2017, where he lives a quiet life filled with golf and debt. Back to you, Alina.
Thanks, Ryan. Stay tuned for our history panel as they discuss Henry VIII's wives. We'll meet you back at the desk. We are back at the desk. Now it's time for the history panel as they discuss Henry VIII's wives. Over to you, Jake.
Thanks, Alina. Well, like she said, we are going to be heading into one of the most popular topics in English history, the wives of Henry VIII. Today, my fellow panelists and I are going to be ranking each wife based on how significant we think they are. But let's get to know them first beforehand. With that being said, Drew?
Alrighty, so first we're going to be discussing Catherine of Aragon, who was the first wife of Henry VIII. Little known fact, well, I guess maybe it is a known fact, that she was first married to Henry's older brother, Arthur, and when they gotten married, they had both fallen very ill, in which Arthur passed away and she survived. And then she goes on to marry Henry VIII. She gave him 6 children, only one of them surviving until adulthood, that being Mary. And the fact that the Pope refused to sign their divorce was the fact that created the Anglican Church within England.
Amazing. Well, I'm representing Anne Boleyn, the second wife. She was obviously after Catherine of Aragon, and she was the first wife within the Anglican Church era of England. And she refused to be the mistress of Henry VIII whenever he was married still to Catherine of Aragon. And she actually ended up giving birth to Elizabeth I, who would go on to be one of the most famous monarchs in all of English history. However, every single pregnancy afterwards resulted in a miscarriage, and during that time, Henry started to pursue Jane Seymour, which would be his third wife. And obviously, her demise did not go well because she ended up being accused of incestuous behavior with her brother and adultery, among other things, which resulted in her beheadment.
Yes, and then I am here to represent Jane Seymour, the third wife of Henry VIII, and she again refused to be a mistress, and she was like, man, get that girl out of your house before I come in. So actually the day after Anne Boleyn was beheaded, they got married privately.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, the day after.
Insane.
Crazy, guys. Wow. Anyway, so then she was said to be the love of Henry's life. Now, I think that could be just because she was the one to give him his first male heir, Edward VI. Then she died 12 days later, so we'll never really know, but, I mean, come on.
I like to think the love was there. So I'm going to be talking about Anne of Cleves, Henry VIII's, I'm calling him Henry like I know him, Henry VIII's fourth wife, and her marriage to Henry was actually the result of a political alliance, and we know Europe's history of political maneuvering and things like that. So Henry VIII wanted an alliance with William, who was the Duke of Cleves, and fun fact, Anna's marriage to Henry didn't last a year. They got married in January 6th, 1540, and then the marriage was annulled six months later in July. Reason being that Henry found that she did not resemble her profile picture. So is this the first instance of catfishing? First documented instance of catfishing, I would say so. But she actually ended up benefiting off the divorce. She received, let me pull up my numbers here. She received the equivalent of £29,630,000 in modern currency over the last 17 years of her life. I think that's
got respect the grind.
You have to respect the hustle. So not only did she receive monetary recompense, that's the word?
Yeah,
recompense.
I believe so.
But she also received ownership of Hever Castle in Kent. So if that's not a win, I don't know what is.
Yeah, she got the house.
Right.
I believe that absolutely is a win, and I would think that my wife here, Catherine Howard, not my wife, but the wife I'm discussing, I believe Catherine Howard is the most exemplary example of standing on business. As you guys can see in my little picture here, Catherine Howard simply stood on business, okay? And everyone around her stood on business too. She was married off when she was in between the ages of 17 to 19. They're not sure about the exact age, all right? And she went in there and she said, all right, you know what, if you're gonna make me do this, I don't care, I'm gonna do what I want. Eventually, she was beheaded because of this, because of adultery, and that's not fun. But she still went with the man she loved, Thomas Culpeper, and her very last words, as her head was on the chopping block, I die a queen, but rather die the wife of Culpeper. Which, when your last words are confessing and proclaiming your love to the man that you really wanted to spend your life with instead of big old Henry VIII, who cares about that guy? That's pretty cool to me. And also, Elizabeth, who everybody knows, Elizabeth, she loved Catherine Howard, which eventually inspired her to never get married because she saw what happened to Catherine Howard, and she never did get married. That's standing on business too. So if we've learned anything from Catherine Howard, it's that it doesn't matter how young you are, you can stand on business.
Yes, and the sixth and final wife, Catherine Parr, a personal favorite of mine, They write her, so we know kind of the most about her and what she was thinking because she kept personal collections and journals and everything. I think because of this, not only because of this, but I think she may have been Henry's smartest wife. She knew how to play the game, and she knew just outlast him, and that was the goal, and she did that. Hey, she did that. Before she married Henry, she was widowed twice before, and before she married Henry, she was in love with Thomas Seymour, who was Jane's older brother.
Plot twist?
Yeah, plot twist. And then Henry was like, "Yo, I'm kind of messing with Catherine Parr," and she was like,
Shame.
"Yeah." So she got married to Henry, and then when Henry kicked the can, sorry, when Henry kicked
Passed
the
away with the
Yeah.
grace of a monarch.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
To put it like
When Henry died, she then got married to Thomas Seymour, which kind of did end up ripping apart the Seymour family. And then she died, and not a very great ending, but at least she died married to the guy she loved. Took her 4.
It does take a
Birthright.
lot of willpower to take care of like an old, fat, paranoid man at the end of his life too.
True.
So she's got a lot of willpower for that.
A warrior.
It is pretty crazy that he had back-to-back wives leave him for somebody named Thomas, both named Catherine.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Insane.
Yeah.
It's a
Thought it
multiracial
could've been
kind of
like
thing,
that.
you know?
He left her first, Catherine Parr first, if you really
And
think
also,
about
he
it.
married
Yeah.
3 Catherines.
Yeah, true.
So
Aragon Howard
He had a
Parr.
type.
Oh God, it's true.
Catherine and Anne, so 2 types, I guess.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't be too happy with a husband that has a history of beheading wives, but you know,
Yeah.
luckily we don't do that anymore.
Well, all of the wives had such unique stories, none of them which are uninteresting. But I think we should honestly, kind of break down where they rank on our tier list.
Let's
Because I'm
do
so
it.
excited.
All right,
I've been
we'll get
looking
into it.
forward
Let's
to
get
this
into
for
it.
a week.
So, first marriage, Catherine of Aragon, very base kind of marriage, very good start, I would say, because she didn't die. However, you know,
Start is crazy.
and
an
if you
achievement.
say that that's a good start, it's a very low bar.
Yeah.
But
With Henry, the bar is kind of
And
in
she-
doubt.
very low.
Yeah. Ooh.
She was also kind of like, the pick-me-up wife. She was like
Yeah,
the
she was-
leftovers. Like, I'm
exactly.
sorry.
Wow.
And I hate to talk about a woman like that because you know what? That really shouldn't be
Because
how
we
we
know Drew
determine a woman's
respects
worth.
women.
I am the number one woman respecter here. But she wasn't giving him a male heir, which really was not vibing with Henry. And so he tried to do the decent thing and say, hey, we're like cousins or something,
Yeah.
and God's like angry with us. That's why we're not having any boys. And then go on to Anne Boleyn, who's also another distant cousin of his. So, you know, but that's the reason why
It's
they
family affair.
exactly. That's why they denied the divorce.
Literally.
Exactly. She literally separated church and state with that divorce. So even though she wasn't necessarily making any big plays, even though she was regent of England when Henry was off in France, you know, she was doing what she needed to do. And so I think that she would probably land somewhere around in.
Yeah, I'm gonna put her in C. She's gonna have to go in C. You know, she had her level of importance, but like we said, she was brought in. Henry didn't really want to be with her. She didn't give any male heir, so we're gonna put her at that. Anne, obviously, one of the most important wives, in my personal opinion. I know I'm just being a little biased here, but she did give birth to the most, once again, a little biased, one of the most successful monarchs in all of English history, Elizabeth I, who would go on to see, the other Catherine wife, Catherine Howard, I'm sorry,
dare
get
you.
beheaded. Sorry,
How dare you?
But she heard of her beheadment, and relating that to her mother's, Anne in itself, obviously it took such a toll. But I think Anne's importance is just so miraculous because it's the first time we're seeing a wife in the Anglican Church also not wanting to be initially married to Henry in the first place, and in that time he was also pursuing Jane Seymour, so she was really screwed over. Like, I'm going to be really passionate about it. She was screwed over, and I just feel like her level of importance really shines above majority. But although I think all the women are respected in their own right, I just think that Anne, I got to put her at the top in my personal opinion.
Yeah, she gets S tier solely because her song on the 6th soundtrack is such a
Yes.
banger, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
So that's, I completely agree with you.
Nope, I agree too. All right, I think Jane Seymour, she led a pretty basic life, I think, compared to the rest of the women here. She died of natural causes. She died of sickness related to childbirth. Again, did Henry love her? Would he have still loved her if she had a daughter instead of a son? We'll never know. I'm going to kind of go with no based on his past history. Again, though, I wasn't there, so I can't really say anything. But I'm gonna give her C as well. I think she deserves.
I would
Solid
like
C.
I would like
C
the
ranking.
audience to know that I was torn apart in the group chat for suggesting she deserved a higher rank for giving Henry a son. But
Because we don't rank women
Well, we're using
on
our
their
modern brains to
capability
think
to.
about this stuff.
to
But
give
listen,
people
if
a
we're,
son.
you know what? It's okay. I don't want to say nothing. So Anna Upclee's fourth wife, I'm putting her at A tier just because once again she ran that man's pockets after the divorce.
That's right.
I mean, after taking a hit to her self-esteem, it doesn't matter if she didn't like Henry, saying, "Oh, you don't look like your picture." That's gotta hurt. That's
so
sting.
mean.
It is a very
so mean.
style way of going about
So,
it.
and then traveling all that way just to be rejected, you have to get something out of that. So I think for the sole reason that she managed to live a good life after Henry, because a lot of our wives did not have fun post Henry VIII, and she got money, she got a castle. What more is there to ask for? So A tier.
You know, if you're gonna get that bag, but you're gonna be called ugly, it's so worth it.
It's so
Yeah,
I would take
worth
that.
it. Okay, I'm ugly, but I'm rich.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Who's laughing now?
who's laughing now?
She was laughing now.
Right.
So for our lovely Catherine Howard, look, I just don't think she had enough time to make as big of an impact on this list as she could have. All right, like I think that if Catherine Howard had more time to finnick around and do what she was doing, she would be S tier in my opinion. Okay. You got to keep in mind that this girl was only married to Henry for like 9 months, and she was also like only 18, younger than all of us are, especially you, old head. Catherine Howard, like she was the daughter of a duke. She had a pretty nice life. I mean, the duke that she was the daughter of was pretty in debt, which, you know, isn't very fun. And definitely getting married to Henry VIII helped him out with that. And her father was a coward too. I don't know if you guys knew that, but whenever she was about to get beheaded, her father went to Henry and started begging for his life. And instead, Catherine Howard spent the entire last night of her life practicing for her getting beheaded. She walked in circles around her prison cage and practiced to make sure that she was formal and elegant when it happened. And I think that that is pretty sick. And just one more example of standing on business. So for me, I'm going to put her in the B tier. I think that's a right spot.
That's a solid, solid middle ground. Right?
Yeah,
Head
absolutely.
high. She left with her head high.
Yeah.
Bitchy?
Darn tootin'.
That's how I want to go out.
Well, she.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's not.
That was a choice. That was a word choice.
Her head was high until it wasn't. Yeah.
Her head was high until it very much was
I think
not.
we're going to be heading into our final wife.
You made the joke already.
I did.
It only works
It's
once.
okay. Last is Catherine Parr. I think, again, for obvious reasons, I think she deserves A tier. I mean, she documented the most. She kind of used her power in the way that she wanted. She pushed and kind of spread what would be Protestant Christianity around. Not to say if that was good or bad, but she thought it was. So
It was something.
Yep. She got to marry the guy she loves after all. I mean, it only took her 4 tries. But, oh my God, 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo, 4 husbands of Catherine Parr, period. A tier.
There you go.
Totally agree.
Happy
You know,
ending. We love it.
but let's see what we got here. We have Aragon at C, we have Anne Boleyn at S, we have Seymour at C, and we have Cleves at A, and we have Howard at B, and we have Parr at A. I'd say we have a pretty good lineup.
Relatively good distribution right
Yeah,
there.
I like that.
I love
I'm
this.
satisfied.
Solid work.
I love this, guys. You know, English history, like specifically the wives themselves, are such like an important topic to learn about because they are in the middle of this Protestant Reformation. I just think it's really, really important that we kind of take a look at Henry VIII and how he, you know, what his thought process was through this entire thing, trying to get this line of, trying to grow his lineage out. But just to see these women's stories develop was just something unique in itself, and I think it's really, really awesome that we were able to really dive into it this week.
Most people really think about his wives more than they actually think about what he has done in his
they're
life.
so significant. It's awesome.
Women power.
Women
Right
power.
business.
Period.
Women power. But yes, well, I think I'm kind of running out of any more beheading jokes. So, everyone, that is all the time we have left for today. We hope you learned more about these women and to never trust a guy named Henry. Back to you, Alina.
Thanks, Jake. Stay tuned for a brand new panel to tell us about one of the biggest blockbuster movies of the year. We are back at the desk. It's time to send it over to Joy to talk all about Oppenheimer.
Thanks, Alina. In media, we often see portrayals of famous and influential moments in time. In those cases, we see directors and filmmakers claim historical accuracy within these movies. In today's segment, I will debrief the Academy Award-winning film Oppenheimer and a conversation on how historically accurate it is, as well as the history behind Oppenheimer. In the opening scene, we see Oppenheimer try to poison his tutor with an apple, but this scene isn't entirely accurate. He was investigated by the university's administration, but his parents were able to talk things down, and it ended with him just being set up for some psychological help. Many biographers claim this story is faulty, and his grandson has come out saying that the story was false. Based off the evidence from the parents in school, something like this definitely happened, but likely it wasn't quite what the movie portrayed it. However, in the following scene, Oppenheimer saves Niels Bohr from said apple, but that is also completely false. And it was based on how Oppenheimer did meet Bohr at Cambridge later that afternoon, but no poison apple is present. With regards to the creation of the atomic bomb, the team thought that it would kill the world and ignite the Earth, transforming it into a big sun-like planet. Although this was a plausible theory, he didn't talk to Einstein about it like in the movie. Instead, he went to Arthur Compton, a well-known physicist from this time. In the last scene, while talking to President Truman, he said that he felt that he had blood on his hands after making the atomic bomb. In the film, Truman said that he never wanted to see Oppenheimer ever again. In reality, he likely said this after he left, but not right in front of him. We can concur that this movie is historically accurate, but the movie often portrays characters and scenes differently from the actual story for the sake of the plot and the storytelling. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a bad thing because no story, even the most complex and renowned ones, need dramatization in order to captivate an audience. And that is what I have to say about Oppenheimer. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in to my segment, and I hope to see you guys next time here at the Desk. Back to you, Alina.
Thanks, Joy. Sadly, that's all we have time for today. In the meantime, stay updated with all of our socials and let us know what you want us to cover next. I'm Alina Surace, and we'll see you back at the desk next week.